Hey, what's going on? My name is Juan. In this video, we're going to use different user types. So let me explain what this is going to be and what this is not going to be. This is not a multi-auth. So this is not how registering two different user types in two different tables. We are going to use one user table, but we are going to store additional attributes on different tables. So we are going to have a user table, a doctor table, and a patient's table, because the attributes of a doctor, they differ from the attributes of a patient. Doctor is going to have a specialty, and patients are going to have a preferred pharmacy. That's just in this demonstration. So this is basically storing the common attributes in the user table and the attributes that differ in their own table. And we are going to be able to grab the attributes, whether they be patient or doctor specific, off of the user. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is create a new application. So Laravel new, and we'll just call this doctor app. All right, and this is PHP Storm here, and I'm gonna use a PHP Storm terminal here. So this is all going to be built using test-driven development. We're not even going to open the browser. So let's go ahead and start getting ready for the test. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna run a make auth command, and that's just so we could build this out of the box Laravel authentication scaffolding. And we are going to run the PHP artisan make test and the registration test. And that's going to be in feature registration test. Get rid of the default, and we can call this a doctor can register. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to send a JSON request, post request to /register. And this route was defined when we ran the make auth command. And we can go ahead and store that in a response variable. The response, we want to assert the redirect to home. And go ahead and assert a status. Assert status is 302. All right, so just going to get started with that. We'll try to run the test, but we're going to get some errors. So it's going to fix these errors. So apply the interpreter, and we'll run it again. We get a 419 error. That's because we're still not completely configured. So I am going to open up the configuration window and look for PHP unit. And right now we are loading PHP unit through the vendor auto load, but we also want to default configuration file. We can click here and load that PHP unit.xml file. So we can apply, hit OK. The last thing we need to do is add a few environment variables. And I am going to just copy and paste that over. DB connection, we're going to set that to SQLite. In the DB database, we're going to set to memory. So that's the only thing we did. Let's go ahead and run that test one more time. We get a 422. So let's go to the registration and let's see what that is. So we assigned it to this without exception handling, which is just going to rethrow the exception earlier on, so it doesn't go through Laravel. And this says the given data was invalid. So what we can do is die and dump the response, and we can target this method, the decode response JSON, and that will give us the errors that were defined. So we have the name error and the email error. So let's go ahead and pass those in. Name, we can pass it as John Doe. Let's go and run the test again, and you can see now we have an email error. So we can run email, and we can call this John at example. Run the test again, and we get this general error, no such table users. So what we can do is we can come up here and use the refresh database trait. And go ahead and run that test again. And again, we get the password error now. So let's go ahead and define password. And we'll just call this super secret. Run it again. And we have the password confirmation does not match. So it's going to duplicate that line down and call this password confirmation. Run it one more time. And now invalid JSON was returned from the route. So we can remove this JSON call now. Now we get green, which means we are successfully registering a user, but we need to register a doctor. So what I want to pass through is I want to pass through a type, and we'll call this doctor. And since we're registering a doctor, I also want to specify a specialty. And the specialty we're going to call general surgery. Okay. And so now that that test is working, let's go ahead and build on that test. So one test that we want to check is we want to make sure assert not null user. So we don't want a not null user. So grab the first user, and then since we want to, as we're building this, I want to make sure that we create a doctor record as well, right? So we want a doctor record, and this is just to build it out. We are not going to ever queue up the doctor like this, but this is just so we can get the errors and everything built properly. So we have this assert not null, and we also want to assert not null on the doctor. And we want to make sure that the assert equals, this assert that we want to make sure that the doctor is returning the correct specialty. And ultimately, we want to be able to get the user specialty, general surgery as well. Okay, so that's the goal here, is to make sure that we can grab the specialty off of the user, and the doctor is here just so we could get the correct errors. So we'll run this test again. It says test feature doctor not found. So we can run PHP artisan make doctor or make model, and we'll call this doctor, but we'll also patch in the -m flag so we can create a migration as well. So let's go ahead and pull in that doctor. We'll import the class, run it again. Now we're asserting that line 34 is null, right? So we didn't create a doctor record. So we go to the register controller, and we want to make sure that on register we also create a record of a doctor. All right, so we're going to do this a more programmatic way. So we're going to define a type, and we are going to specify the path to the model. We're going to just use the first and pass in the data type. So let's go ahead and die and dump that type just so you can get an idea of what we're doing. So when we pull in the data, on the validator, we're pulling in the data. We actually don't want to do this in the validator. We want to do it here in the create. We are not going to write any test for validation, but you can go ahead and validate type. We're not going to do it in case later on we want to add that test coverage. It would force us to add that validation. But for this demo, we're just going to pass through the type, make sure we have it, and we die and dump. We call it app doctor. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a typeable variable, and we're just going to go type create, and we're going to pass through the data. So this is the same as typing out doctor create, but this is going, since we have patients as well, this will take care of both cases for us. So I'm going to move that up one and run the test again. All right, so we got a 500 error. Let's go ahead and go to the test, and without exception handling again, and just add name fillable. So we need to add a fillable trait to the doctor, and we gotta add the specialty attribute, but we don't have a migration just yet. So let's go ahead and define the create doctor table, and we can go ahead and assign it the string specialty. We can go ahead and get rid of timestamps and the ID. We don't need that, but we'll just keep the ID in. Run the test again, and nothing changed. So let's go ahead and go to the doctor model, and we'll add a fillable field. And we want to fill in the specialty. All right, just so we don't have to see the error, it's going to include the timestamps. Okay. So now the error is updated. Now it says on line 39. So if we comment out this, so now we can pull off the specialty off of the doctor. And but we still cannot pull it off of the user. So the way we're going to handle this is we're going to use an observer. So what we can do is we can type PHP artisan make observer, and we can pass in the name of the observer we want to call. So observer or user observer, and we want to pass in the model that is going to handle. So we're going to call the user model, run that, and now we have an app observers. We have the user observer, and this has some methods out of the box. We don't need any of these. And there is also a method we could use, and this is going to be retrieved. So we can go ahead and die and dump, and just to get this. So whenever we try to retrieve a user, this method is called on the observer, and we got to set up the observer on the model. So we can go into the user model, and here at the bottom, we'll go ahead and define a boot method. It's a static function method. We want to call the parent. Okay, and now all we have to do is call the user observer, user observe method, and register the new user observer. So if we go ahead and hit the test, you can see it says retrieved. That means because on the test, when we retrieve the user, let's go ahead and comment this out, and comment this out. So we're not retrieving the user. We never get that die and dump. Go ahead and uncomment that. Refresh. Now we are hitting the observer, which is here. And in this observer, we're going to do something very simple. All we're going to do is create a for each loop, and then we're going to grab the user typeable, and we're going to specify a to array, so we can grab all the attributes of the typeable relationship, which we have not defined, and we're just going to pass in the key and the value, and we're going to go ahead and grab the user variable and set the attribute, and all we're going to do is pass key and the value. The refresh, see the undefined variable user. So we need to pull in the user. Call to member function to array on null. That's because there's no typeable relationship. So we can go to user. Right above the boot method, we'll create a typeable. That's going to refresh, and it must be a relationship instance. So let's go ahead and do return, and we're going to use polymorphism. It's going to be this morph 2. Go ahead and hit refresh, and now there is no typeable. This is not returning anything because we do not have the correct fields in our user model. Let's go to the user model, the create user migration. And we are going to add 2 fields. We're going to call this the unsigned integer, and this is going to be the typeable ID. And we can call a string, and this is the typeable type. And this is basically going to allow Laravel to understand, and we can use polymorphism to create the connection between a doctor and a patient. So let's go ahead and run that again, and we get the user ID, typeable ID, the user's typeable ID constraint. So if we go to the registration controller, we can go ahead, since we have the typeable here, we can define the ID as typeable ID, and the typeable type. Go ahead and run that error again. Run the test again. We get a typeable ID, and that's because it is not in the fillable fields. So let's go here and define the fillable fields, which is typeable ID, typeable type. Refresh. Rerun the test again, and we Okay, so we're getting this typable type error, and that's because we're not getting the class. So we'll get class, which will grab the class, the underlying class name, and save it as a type. Okay, and I made an error here. We should not be calling the type. We should just call the typable under the get class function. Run it again, and we get green. So what that is allowing us to do is we can grab the specialty or the doctor specific attributes off of a user, because in the observer we are looping through each typable array. So we are running through each typable attribute and we're assigning it to array. So let's go ahead and die and dump that just to see what we're getting. We are getting the ID, the specialty, created and updated that. You can go ahead and go to the doctor model and you could hide some of these. So we don't want to show the ID, we don't want to show the created at or the updated at. So all we're showing is a specialty, and if we were to add a different attribute, it'll show up here, and we do have access to it straight off the user and off the doctor. Well, we don't need the doctor, but now we can put it off the user. So we can go ahead and duplicate this test, and we can register a patient as well. So since we have, we can patch through the patient and say they have a preferred pharmacy, and we'll just call this Walgreens. And down here we can specify we want Walgreens, and we don't need specialty. We try and put with a preferred pharmacy, and this should be patient. Update all of these variable calls to patient. Go ahead and run this test again, or run this new test. See class patient not found. We can run PHP artisan make test, make model, and this is going to be the patient model, and we're going to press -m to create a migration. Go to the create patient table. Let's go ahead and pass in what we want. We want string, and this is going to be the preferred pharmacy. Run it again. Add name to fillable fields. We want to kind of copy here what we have. Go ahead and copy that into the patient. Instead of specialty, we want to make sure we are filling the preferred pharmacy. Run the test. Get this preferred pharmacy. We are dying and dumping the retrieve. Just go ahead and remove that on the observer on the retrieved method. We get the patient not found. That's because we did not import it. So let's go ahead and quickly just import that patient model. And we had a type of Walgreens. Instead of Walgreens, it's Walgreens. Now we get green. So now we have a doctor and a patient. And let's go ahead and look at that in the database. So we'll go to env, the env file. I have a database that's doctor app, root, and blank. So we're on the migrations. Now you can see the users. We have all the common attributes: name, email, password, typable ID, and typable type. And we also have a doctors table that just has a specialty, and the patients that just has preferred pharmacy. So you could add as many attributes as you'd like. And we are still using a single user table, and it still authenticates same way as the default scaffolding, but now we can add additional attributes to different user types. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.